Okay, good evening, people, and ladies and gentlemen, parents. Thank you very much for signing in for the first ever time that we are doing YouTube live. I hope that you've signed on okay. I hope you can hear me. And basically, you're coming live from my office, a hive of activity that's always this tidy. And we're here for me to explain to you a little bit about how we're changing the way in which we assess pupils at Key Stage 3. That's for us is year 7, 8 and half of year 9. The reasons for doing that, how it's going to work practically, how we'll communicate assessments and progress with you and pupils, so that you understand the reasons for adopting the new system and how it works. You should see on your YouTube page on the right hand side there is a little chat box where you can ask questions, make comments. Mr. Booth is sitting opposite me, sadly out of shot, but he's there to answer any questions that he can do. The format of this will be that I'm going to talk you through a presentation which you'll be able to see on your screen, and afterwards I'll deal with any questions that you may have about what you're doing. If you have any technical issues as well, you can write in the box, but obviously there's not much we can do. You just need to make sure your sound's turned up, and hopefully other than that everything will be okay. So I'm going to go straight in and look at the presentation. My apologies. I believe that we've encountered our first technical hitch. Thank you very much to Mrs. Covey, who's highlighted the fact that I don't think the sound was working when I was talking through the things. I've got Mr. Booth here checking. He's going to turn the sound up on his laptop and make sure he can hear me. So hopefully now people will be able to hear me as I talk through these slides. I will just wait. My apologies for that. We'll go back and you won't have missed anything based on the fact that the sound wasn't working. Good. It appears that everything's on and working now. Apologies for that. So I will just quickly recap what I've just talked through. So this is the agenda of what we're going to be talking about. So everything's written down there. We're going to be talking about how we came up with the new system, how it's going to work in practice, and how you as parents and pupils will understand what's going on. So the Department for Education announced that they were abandoning levels, they were ending the practice of using levels for Key Stage 2 tests in September 2014. And for from this summer, pupils joining us from Year 6 no longer have levels for their Key Stage 2 tests in English and mathematics. We now get a scaled score, so a score between 80 and 120, which represents how well they did in their test. But other than that, we no longer have levels by which to judge pupils and their progress. And the government also encouraged secondary schools and other primary schools to devise alternative means by which to assess pupils' attainment and progress. And so based upon that, a number of primary, secondary and special schools across the country were given funding from the government to run pilot programs and trials to trial new assessment systems and publish their findings so that schools like ours could investigate and analyse what they were offering and see whether their systems worked for our school. So that was the first thing that we did when we decided we were going to adopt an assessment without levels system. We didn't jump straight away to change. We wanted to wait and see a little bit and find out the experiences of different schools across the country. And so our first foray into sorting out our assessment without levels system was to review the proposals and the pilots that from the other schools around the country, particularly focusing on secondary schools, and see the pros and cons of each system and whether or not the ideas contained within those systems fit our school. We also spoke to teachers and we spoke to pupils about what they liked about the existing levelling system and what they didn't like. And based upon that and our research, we devised a proposal for the new assessment system. We launched that with teachers in January. And subsequently, they have had about 4 months to do some work behind the scenes to get it ready for piloting from this May, as has been the case with pupils in Year 8 and 9, New Year 8 and New Year 9. And so that's the sort of background. The other thing to add is that alongside all of these plans, I've been speaking to other local schools to find out what they've been doing regarding the assessment without levels agenda. Lots of other local schools are doing. Lots of other local schools are adopting a very similar system to that which I'm going to explain to you today, and so we are sharing our findings, sharing our expertise. I'm hearing that we can't be heard again coming up. So okay, it's back on by all accounts. So we have been speaking to local schools, and they are all lots of them are doing a very similar system to that which we're adopting. So I imagine that obviously that parents will have is, if we're not using levels, then how are we going to know how well pupils are doing and how is assessment happening in school? And so the first, we've previously done it in lessons. So all the essays, tests, quizzes, discussions, questions that pupils do will continue. The major difference to how we have assessed previously is that those essays and questions and some quizzes and things will not necessarily be given a level or a grade. And the reason we've decided to do that is because often when we returned questions marked, the first thing pupils did was compare their grades or their levels or their percentage with their peers. And actually, they didn't reflect on how well they'd done as an individual, and rather they tried to place themselves in the class and see who had got the highest level, which lost the focus on how each individual pupil needs to improve. And from feedback from teachers and from pupils, both groups said that the most valuable part of feedback they got when they had done an assessment was the comments and the targets that were written by teachers underneath their work. And so we've effectively devised a system of assessment that focuses on that kind of feedback from teachers rather than a nominal kind of grade or level to classify a piece of work. So the main thing that you'll see is that in books, the work that pupils do will largely be given detailed feedback and comments and targets as to how pupils need to improve, what they need to do to get better in each of their different subject areas. There is, though, a system behind it and a structure which will help pupils to understand what is required of them and how they can improve. And that's through the use of these rubrics. Now, I appreciate the image here you can't see in detail, but this gives you an overview of the kind of sheet that you hopefully will be seeing in your pupils' books. If you have a look in any of their books, you should see one of these stuck into their books, which explains the different kind of standard of work that is expected at each of 4 bands of expertise. And so these rubrics have been created by all different subject areas to show what is required to improve and get better. So as you can see, the arrow going up suggests the improvements that need to be made, and the pupil-friendly short text here says what needs to be done in each of the areas. So this is one for geography, and so you'd be able to see this in the book, and I would encourage you to have a look in your pupils' books to see the kind of examples of this that are used in the different subject areas. These can also be used to track progress for pupils, and so teachers can highlight, or pupils can highlight, the levels at which they are achieving, the quality of the work that they are achieving, and they can say whether someone is doing well or what they have achieved in terms of the different skills and in terms of the content that's written in the different columns that we see here. So the skills and knowledge that are broken down, they're broken down into 4 bands of increasing difficulty. So they have a base band here, and each of these 4 layers effectively increases the difficulty in the given topic. So for every topic in every subject, pupils in year 7, 8 and the first half of year 9 will get one of these rubrics, and so their pupils will know what is expected of them. It's very clearly laid out what they need to do, and teachers will be able to assess the quality of their work using these. And I'm going to talk later on about how this leads to a way in which you can monitor the progress of pupils through the ARBA system. So how do we know how well pupils are progressing? Obviously before, we'd know that if someone got to level 5 when they previously got to level 4, that implied that they had made some progress. Given that we are now just giving feedback based on marking, how do we know whether a pupil is progressing? Effectively, it's these 4 stages here. So on entry, we look at the Key Stage 2 results of each pupil. Previously, that's been a level. Now it's a score between 80 and 120, but it gives us a picture of how well pupils are doing in English and mathematics. This gives us an entry profile based upon which we can put pupils into one of the 4 bands that I talked about earlier as effectively a baseline. And we can use that as a means by which to judge progress, to see whether pupils have stayed in that same band as they go through the different subjects' work, or whether they improve, or in a bad scenario, slide back into a lower band. So we can track their progress, based in relation to their baseline band. How that looks, I will show you on the next slide. This gives you an idea about the 4 bands that we're going to be putting pupils into. So they're given the terms here: emerging, developing, securing and mastering. And based on the average Key Stage 2 entry, the old levels here in the middle and the new Key Stage 2 scores, these are draft levels here, but just so you have an idea. Those pupils coming in, a 4B was national expectations. Now national expectations is 100. And those kind of pupils for us, we are saying, are coming in a securing band. So they are securing the knowledge to then move up, hopefully, to the mastering band. So those are the 4 names. These are labels that or words that are largely just used by teachers. We're not going to be using these so much with the pupils because otherwise pupils will fall into the trap, I think, of labelling themselves with these, whereas the view with all work is that everyone is capable of getting up to the mastering level if they follow the ladder effectively going up. So, each half term, or actually even more frequently than each half term, teachers will be marking pupils based on their progress. And so if pupil is making the progress that we would expect of them, if their work suggests that they've stayed in the band that they entered us with, they will be given effectively a 0 to say that they are on track to make expected progress. One of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest culture shifts we need to make, and I would really appreciate your efforts in helping out with your child, is building the idea that 0 in this new system is okay. 0 means on track. It means there's nothing to worry about. It means that that pupil is going at the progress rate that we would expect of them. Obviously, pupils can do slightly better and much better. So they'd be in those scenarios, they'd get +1 or +2 as their progress mark. And if they're not doing as well as we'd expect, these are, they get a -1 or a -2. The most important thing to note about this is that these scores here, from +2 down to -2, are relative to an individual pupil's starting point. So +2 doesn't mean excellent work. +2 means that pupil is doing exceptionally well compared to where they started. And so 2 different pieces of work could get 2 different scores because they are done by pupils who have come from different starting points. If someone who's come in at an exceptional level does an okay piece of work, then that might actually end up with them getting a -1, whereas someone who produces the same piece of work but actually had come in at a much lower level when they started with us might get a +1 or a +2 for such a similar piece of work. And the benefit of this system is that comparing scores now can actually happen because anyone in a positive for any subject is doing well in that subject relative to their starting point. So teachers use a pupil's band on entry, and based on the detail in the rubric that is in the pupil's book, they are able to decide whether a pupil is on track. And so if, as it says here, pupils in the securing band and they remain in the securing band, they would score a 0. And this is the little turn of phrase that I'm trying to encourage people to understand, which is that O is okay. So it's okay to be on 0 because that means you're on track for progress. And so here, as a worked example, if this pupil had come in at the mastering level, so the top band here, that was their baseline when they joined us from Key Stage 2, we'd expect them to stay at that level. And so the work that we do, we would be expecting them to hit this top mastering band in everything that they do. So this pupil in this geography unit, in the first 2, has hit the mastering band, so that's great because they've stayed where they're expected, so they would score a 0 for these first 2 columns. In this third column, they've dropped down into the securing band, so they might score a -1 because they're not doing so well. And the good thing is then now the pupil knows that this is the specific part of the geography curriculum that they need to work on. And finally, in this fourth column here, they've achieved the mastering band, but the teacher might make the decision that their work is of such high quality in this band that they award them a +1. So even if you come at the mastering level, you're able to gain a positive score if your work warrants it. And so the thing here is that a pupil is able to very quickly visually see the area that they need to work on. And because it's outlined in the rubric what needs to be done in order to get to this stage, a pupil's feedback and what they need to work on is very clear for them. So we're hoping that it will help pupils to understand their requirements for moving up to the next stages of learning in each of their different subjects quite easily, just by looking at a glance at these rubrics in their books. And so how are we going to communicate this with to parents? So on Arbor, I'll show you on the next slide, and in a letter that I sent out on the 29th of June, there was a quick walkthrough to show you how you can see all of this on Arbor, and those parents with pupils in years 8 and 9 now will be able to see the marking that has taken place for these first rubrics, and you'll be able to see in the different subject areas how well your pupil is doing. So whenever a mark is updated by a teacher on Arbor, it's live for the parents to see, so it's something that you can keep track of day in, day out, however often you feel like checking up on Arbor. We will continue to report in December with an interim report that's sent out to all parents from all subject areas. There's the Parents' Evening in March that many of you will have attended this year, and that will continue. And in July, on Tuesday next week, on our last day of term, we'll be sending home the full reports as well. And so we have all of those full reports and Arbor as the system by which you can track in real time. We are also going to be conducting 3 tests throughout the year. So many of you are aware that in May half term, just before the May half term, we have a round of examinations which take place in the hall, which are geared towards getting pupils used to the exams they'll be taking for their GCSEs. Those will continue in May, and also during autumn one, at the end of the autumn one term, just before October half term, and in spring one, just before February half term, pupils will sit tests, examinations that they will get a grade for, because despite the fact that the new system is all based around progress, we do need to get pupils used to the fact that when they move to their GCSEs, they will eventually sit an exam, or a series of exams, which will result in them getting a given grade. Those exams only reflect the performance in the room on that day, and don't explain to the pupil how well they are doing, for example, in English. But it is important that they understand that there are some stakes that they need to take as very real when they have to sit these exams, and so we will be continuing to do that. So alongside the assessment without levels, you will get 3 communications from school by way of a report that is available both as a hard copy sent home and will be available for you in Arbor, that tells you how well your pupils are doing given their performance in a specific set of exams. It's very important, and alongside the understanding that 0 is okay, the second thing that we need to work on is the fact that day to day we'll be looking at the progress and the feedback from teachers and looking at the +2 down to -2 scale. But at 3 points throughout the year, we will be giving grades to pupils so they understand how well they're doing in a given test. But that does not represent how well they are doing in a subject overall. That is what you can find out from the assessment without levels feedback. So this is what it looks like on Arbor. So you're able to go into, if you click on the existing levels on your Arbor home screen, you can then get through to the curriculum tracking, is what's called in Arbor, and you'll be able to have a look at all the different subjects and their summaries of AWL, which stands for Assessment Without Levels, and you can see how well pupils are doing with regard to the different elements of the English curriculum. So here this pupil's got 1+ for one area and 0 for another, so you can have a look at the areas that your child may need to work on in English, and if you drop down in your own Arbor login, you'll be able to see all the different subjects as well. So, by way of summary, levels have been removed, and so effectively we have had to come up with a response to this because levels are no longer the currency that schools are using to measure attainment and progress. We've spent a lot of time devising and looking through the different alternatives that we could have adopted, and feel that we have done so and given all of the different options a fair hearing, and given that the system that we've got is based on some very successful schools and has also been adopted by other local schools, we're confident that the system we've adopted is robust and is fit for purpose. So the principle behind it is that pupils will be given detailed feedback on their work, and the progress mark from +2 down to -2 will be based on their individual starting. No longer is the currency about a level or a grade that pupils are going for. It's about making sure that you are progressing well based on your starting point. 3 times throughout the year we will be doing tests that result in a grade, but those only relate to that individual important. And all of this will be available through Arbor, so you'll be able to log on to Arbor at any point, and 3 level feedback sheets or grade feedback sheets from the assessments, and also parents' evening. Apologies for the slight technical hitches before. That is the end of the presentation, which, as I say, will be available on the website. I'm very happy now to take any questions that anyone would like to write in the sidebar, which should just be next to your screen on YouTube. And as Mr. Booth has written, we will happily address any of those. I hope this has been useful. Also, any feedback on this as a means by which of sharing information, we'd be very pleased to take on. So yes, I will wait with bated breath